Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good day, everyone. Today's our classes. Yeah, we will be discussing about quantitative research methods. Yeah. So in these videos, I'm going to present what we mean by quantitative research methods. Yeah. The topic on step by step on doing academic writings, I'll be giving, I think, 2 or 3 weeks from now, with the consideration that those lecture will be very important when you guys are starting working on your uh, academic papers. Yeah, so rather than discussing about it now, and I'm afraid that most of you will be forgot some of the key elements. So today's I'll be discussing about quantitative research methods. On the next videos, I'll be giving you a lectures on the qualitative research methods. Yeah. These are the two most important research methods that people are using in different fields, including architecture. So today's one, let's start with the quantitative research method first. Let me share the screen. One moment. Okay, I hope you can see my screen there. Well, let me close this one first. Okay. Okay. Today we'll be discussing more about quantitative research methods. What is quantitative research methods? Quantitative research method is basically a process of collecting, analyzing numerical data. So when you are trying to quantify things, on many other aspects, I mean, you are trying to find a pattern, average, prediction, causal relationships, generalized result for wider populations. Those are the idea of the quantitative risk methods. So quantitative, remember you use the word quantity. Quantity means numbers. Yeah. So it's a numerical data that you are working on, mean you are using a quantitative research methods. Yeah. When it is useful, quantitative research methods, the objective, I mean, the main goal is to quantify, is to collect numerical data from group of people, then generalize it into larger group to explain some phenomena. So you need a sample from group of people in order for you to generate a bigger knowledge. Yeah. Researchers generally use quantitative research when they want to get objective and conclusive answer. Yeah. So it's more of finding a exact answer. Yeah. So that's why when you research objective, I mean, when you're writing your paper later on, you like to I mean, when you did your research later on, you like to find out the answer, the correct answer, the specific correct answer. Normally, we are using a quantitative research methods. They are what make quantitative good and what makes not so good. Yeah, so that you can understand the whole pictures. Quantitative research methods is good when you are discussing about big samples. Yeah, when you are trying to replicate the methods into others' research. When you are trying to do hypothesis testings, I mean you already have the hypothesis, you like to test it out, and you use this approach. When you like to do a direct comparison of result, I mean when you did your experiment, you like to compare with other people experiments, then you did this approach. Quantitative research method was not so good when you, number one, you lack of context. So you don't have the bigger pictures of the things. When you have structural bias, mean that when you design the research itself, it's contains some bias. Yeah, that's why it become very important for you to understand those things. Or when you like to do research on specific or very narrow focus. Yeah. So at the end, quantitative research methods looks very superficialities. I mean, very superficial. Yeah, when you look at it from the problems that you have before, lack of context, structural bias, your focus is too narrow. So in this kind of research, quantitative research method might not be enough, yeah, or might not be suitable for you to choose. There are three types of quantitative research. One, they call it as a survey research. Survey research mean you like to do a survey on certain things. I mean you did either you distribute questionnaire or you visit those things. That's called survey research. Second one is that when you did a correlational research. Correlation means that you like to know the correlation or connection between one phenomena of research into other phenomena of research. And then, of course, another one of the good examples of quantitative research when you did experimental research. Experimental research means that you testing certain things, yeah, testing certain hypotheses, and you did it in a lab or in the they call it control environment. Yeah, that what we call a experimental research. These are sample of the methods, yeah, related with the quantitative research methods. One, when you did a document reviews, yeah, and then when you do observations. A document review mean you, for example, you like to evaluate whether the regulations, yeah, maybe bylaw. If you know architects, you learn bylaw. Whether our bylaw was referred by most architect when they design some things, design buildings. Yeah. Or you like to do observation. Observation means you observe. Yeah, you go to certain, you observe for certain period of times. Or you might go with survey and questionnaire. Yeah, we distribute survey, questionnaire. I mean, in your when you read those papers, yeah, when you did your assignment one, you see some of them are distributing questionnaire, some of them are doing a surveys. Yeah. Or when you even interview, sometimes could be a quantitative data collections. Yeah. Or of course, when you, I'm going to discuss that later. When you design the question for interview or questionnaire into a kind of something that can be measured, that what we call a interview in the quantitative ways. And of course, when you did a probability sampling, yeah, I mean you choose certain sample and you specifically do or conduct research based on targeted groups of sample, yeah. What kind of data that are you looking in the quantitative research methods? Yeah, one counter. Counter mean numbers. Yeah, how many percent say yes? How many percent might say no? Yeah, how many percent agree with you? How many percent is disagree with you? Those kind of things they call it counter. Or you want to measure. I mean, when you did an experiment, you like to measure certain how much the temperature. Yeah, how high, how wide is it? How high is it? So those kind of things called quantitative data that you collected. Or sensory calculation, sensory, when you smell thing, when you feel the heat, yeah, when you taste it, those kind of called quantitative data. Or you projection of data. I mean, you project, yeah, certain things. That's called also called quantitative data. And last one, when we try to quantify something qualitative, yeah, that's also called quantitative data. Yeah, for example, you try to measure feelings of kids when one student being scolded by the teacher. You want to quantify. Quantify means what are the symptoms, the feeling of the, you measure it. Yeah, I mean they're nervous, 5, 4, 3, and of course you trying to say that okay, I feel afraid. Afraid. What do you mean by afraid? Is it 1, 3, 4, or 5? So you try to quantify something qualitative. That's what we call a quantitative data. Okay, let's start research by doing the quantitative research. Okay, there are 5 steps. Yeah, I mean it's not 5, 4 steps, 4 important steps when you like to work on the quantitative research. Number one, you need to identify the research problems. This is a very important stage. Yeah, you fail doing this, normally you will have problem on the next stage. Yeah. For if I may advise you on your assignment 3, when you're trying to write an academic papers, try to come up with a simple research problems. Don't go too detailed, don't go too complicated. For example, you say that okay, kalau always a flood in December. And one of the reason of the flood is because there's this high tide of seawater. Yeah, high tide of seawater. So when the rain came, the water cannot go to the river. Cannot go to the river, and the river cannot go to the seas because high tide of seawater. That's what happened in Batu Pahat. That's what happened in Shah Alam last time. Yeah, it's also happening last time in Taiping. Yeah, because of high tide of seawaters. So okay, so what can architect do with that? Yeah, for example, one of my students, he tried to design the rooftop. Yeah, so when the rain come to the roof, it's stopped by for few hours maybe. If we can stop, I mean the water is not directly go to the drain for the next 15 minutes or 20 minutes. That's enough. Yeah, to ensure that the water can go to the seas safely. Yeah, so you can reduce the possibility of having a flood on that particular times. Yeah, so try to find a specific research problems. Yeah. So research problem can come from different source. Yeah. It could be from existing literature review, the one that you did, practitioners, professor, brainstorming, personal characteristic, popular issues, etc. As I said, try to find a simple problem with a specific, I mean, simple and specific problem, not go too wide. Yeah, too wide mean something is not clear. I say that, okay, people are not happy in Kuala Lumpur. Not happy because of what? Yeah, uh, they find it very difficult to find jobs, for example, for youngsters. Okay, and also they find it the cost of working in Kuala Lumpur while you're staying in Kajang, for example, that costs you a lot. Yeah, even though you taking MRT things, that costs you. Okay, that's more specific. You cannot just say, okay, people are not happy staying in Kuala Lumpur, but because of what? So try to avoid unspecific and too general problems. Try to make it as clearly as possible. Okay. So next, after you identify the research problem, you need to prepare a research questions. Yeah, research question normally defined by five few, I mean five W, and of course you have how. Yeah, what, why, whom, whose, when, which. Yeah, at the end, and of course you need the how on that. Yeah? You need to prepare the next question. My suggestion for your papers, try to only focus on one or two risk question, maximum two. My advice is to go only specific only one. I mean, for example, I would like to identify the reason why the flood is happening in Malaysia. What are the architectural recommendation? For example, that rooftop gardens can where they can that one can reduce the the flood in Kuala Lumpur. Yeah, for, with all the system, etc. Then what you need to do after you identify this question, you need to go to the existing literature. Yes, that's why when I ask you to identify 10 papers, yeah, one of you identify 10 papers. If 6 of you in one group, you have 60 papers. Yeah, when the whole class you have 400, maybe 300 papers. Yeah, so when you discuss each other, you're supposed to have a comprehensive understanding on those things. Yeah. So in every academic papers, you need to have a very strong literature reviews. Without literature reviews, you are nowhere. Yeah, because you don't know what has been done and when are your research is going to. Yeah, that is very important elements. And uh, lastly, you can develop your research plan. Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next one. So to repeat what I've done before, yeah, choose your research topics. Yeah, do something you like. I think before you do some things, try to choose something that you like to do. Yeah. Then from that something that you like, you want to focus, narrow it down. Yeah. Even though in the first assignment you are distributed into different disaster that you choose, but at the end during your individual assignments, you are allowed to choose whatever disaster that you want. Yeah. So you have freedom on that. You can cross other people's disaster and you can join them. So once you decide on your research topic, you need to narrow it down, yeah, and specifically find your niche, yeah, your niche, yeah. Then you go to identify research problems. As I said, the problem shouldn't be too wide. Don't forget, you need your citation. Yeah, don't write a papers without citation because this is not a newspapers. Yeah, you need to write an academic writings. Yeah. Develop the research question, research design, answer them. Then after that, you can go into this objective and write your research proposals. Yeah, so basically, in your before we go into your individual assignments, yeah, I would like to have a session when you presenting your proposed topics, yeah, proposed topic in the form of this proposal. I'm going to share with you some of the samples later on so that you can learn from that other samples. Yeah. Then the most important, you have to write it. You have to start writing up. Yeah. Okay. So again, when you look at the flow, yeah, on your this is a flow on your papers. Yeah, later on, you need to have introduction. Yeah, we're going to discuss this in very details when we discuss a step by step of academic writings. Yeah, introductions. Of course, you go your literature reviews. Yeah, you need to have a section on methodologies, data analysis and finding. Of course, your conclusion and recommendation. In the introduction, these are the things that you need to have. You need to have the introduction, problem statement, yeah, objective, yeah. Then you need to have a systematic literature reviews there. And what is your quantitative methods, yeah? Is it a surveys? Is it a documentation? Is it the case studies? You need to explain them in detail. When you did observation also, that will be very good. I know we have a very limited times, yeah, but I will be very encouraging you to have a primary data. That means when you did a survey, you distribute questionnaire, you did interviews. I think those kind of data might be more useful, even though it's not going to be very comprehensive because you have a very limited of times. Yeah, but of course you need presents, yeah, data gathering, yeah, what is your findings, yeah, whether you use software or you use manually. That one is okay. Yeah. Of course, at the end, you need to come up with conclusion and recommendation. In terms of sampling, in the quantitative research methods, you have a probability sampling. Probability sampling means that it could be a random, yeah, random sampling, systematic sample, cluster, mean you or stratified sample. Yeah. Another one, when you have a non-probabilities, mean that you choose not based on the specific system. Yeah, probability mean you use some probabilities, some uh, possible samples. Yeah. Or you can use a snowball sample, purposive sample, etc. So you can read more details on this, yeah, when you did your quantitative method later on. Okay. Next is that normally when people did a quantitative method, they develop a questionnaire. A questionnaire is something that you distributed to the people, so the people fill in those questionnaire. Yeah, some questionnaire require you like 5 minutes, some questionnaire require you like 10 minutes, some questionnaire even took you like half an hours or even 1 hour. I will suggest my student not to design the questionnaire so complicated so that it require more than 50 minutes to fill it. Yeah. If possible, less than 10 minutes will be better. Yeah. So when you designing questionnaire, you need number one, you need demographic details. Yeah, means that you need to know your respondent. Yeah, there should be a section where you're discussing about the demographic of your respondent. Yeah. Of course, next one questionnaire, which reflecting the objective. Yeah. I give you a sample here. Yeah, question could be close-ended. Yeah, close-ended mean that you specifically state the numbers, or you can open-ended. Open-ended mean that you allow people to explain in their own ways. Mean you give a freedom for them to write, yeah, on their answer. Yeah, so for example, these are the sample of it. These are next you discuss about the objective. Yeah, for example, like this one, the aim of the research is to create an awareness among construction players in Johor Bahru toward the benefit of forest cities. Yeah. To identify criteria of forest city concept implementation in development of the projects. Also, you use that objective into some things. In your cases, I mean, in your assignment later on, assignment 3s, we focus only one subject, one objective. Yeah, so please focus one or two objective, and from that you would like to develop a questionnaire or interview question. That's up to you. Yeah, you design for it. But we will have a discussion on that. Yeah, so that it can be more specific, the topics. Uh, in the questionnaires, I'm sorry for some of the things which is not clear there. Sometimes you use like a scale when you have a certain scale to identify it. Normally we use bad, very bad, moderate, etc. So these are the tables. Yeah? When you design a questionnaires, you can refer to this table when you talk about frequency, quality, intensity, agreements. Yeah. So these are the scale that you can use when you're designing your questionnaire later on. Another thing, of course, you have a Google form, you have Survey Monkeys. Yeah. These are the things that people use when they collect the data. And then, of course, when you gather the data, you need to analyze the data. In the quantitative research method, there are two types of quantitative data analysis. One, they call it a descriptive analysis, when you are describing the numbers, median, percentage, frequency, rating, etc. Or you are doing inferential analysis. Inferential analysis means that it's more complex when you're trying to find, for example, like correlation between two or three variables. You're trying to find the regressions, yeah, we show predicts of the between two variables. Analysis of variance, yeah. You predict what happened, the trends. That's called inferential analysis. So these are the things that you can choose after you gather your data. I may suggest you can go for inferential analysis and giving your opinion based on the data that you gather. That is more critical and more important for your paper later on. Of course, some people use SPSS, yeah, to come out with easier. I mean, SPSS is just a tools to help you to calculate. If, for example, if you only have like 20 or 30 data, it's not that difficult. But if you're talking about 500, 1,500, 2,000, 3,000, then you need a software or tools to help you to generate the calculate, yeah, the data that you have, yeah, that when SPSS come. Yeah. Yeah. Another thing is that we have called rush modeling. Yeah, rush modeling, just for your information, when you have a quantitative data, which is very complex. Yeah. Even some of the data, for example, some of my students using it for action research. Yeah. When they did an action research, they would like to analyze a certain data so that it can be the data is quite complex. Yeah. They would like to see the trend, the attempt by the student, etc. Yeah, that they're using a RAS modeling. Yeah, you can browse through and read more about it. So when you finish up your data collection, you finish up your data analysis, then you need to do what we call as quantitative data validation. Quantitative validation means that number one, you need to do final checking. Normally, what we did is that when we finish everything, we bring in an expert. Yeah, we give our data to them so that they can do this procedure of checking. Number one, they will check whether the data is true or fraud. Yeah, because some quantitative data was they're not actually collecting the data, or they're not actually distributing the questionnaire. That's why first we have to be sure that the process was running accordingly. Yeah. Then we did a screening. Yeah. So you need to know, okay, how you choose the criteria of the respondent. Yeah. For example, if you like to know somebody who know very well on the cities, maybe you decide somebody must be staying for that particular city for 20 years or 5 years and above. This criteria must be followed strictly based on your recommendation. Then, of course, we look at your procedures. Yeah, whether you follow the procedure or not. You interview them. For example, some of the research when we did the interview or questionnaires to the student need to be sit first, and then they have to be sitting there at least for 2-3 minutes so that they are no longer, kids, when they you like to directly interview or did experiment with them, they have to be cooled down first because they keep running here and there. So when you didn't do the cooling process, it's going to be very difficult to ensure that your data is valid. Yeah. And then, of course, you need to finish up everything. Yeah. You cannot just do one part and not finish the whole process. So with this process of validation, you finish up the whole process of quantitative data research. I think that's all for our quantitative data research. Thank you very much for your times. Hopefully, you have some clear understandings on what is quantitative research method is about. And then you have any question, feel free to drop the message. You can ask directly to me, or you can do the chat box. Then I try to answer on the next lectures. Thank you very much. Yeah. Let me stop the screening first. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much for your time. Yeah. Hope to see you again on the next lectures on the qualitative data, collect data method. Yeah, this method.